On the windswept shore of a tiny Newfoundland fishing village lies the grave of a lone British seaman.
Norman C. Bennett, Royal Navy, HMS P-514, June 21st, 1942. Rest in peace.
It is the only clue to a tragedy that occurred in these waters more than 65 years ago. It is June 20th, 1942, in the midst of the Second World War. The British submarine P-514 is just a few miles off the south coast of Newfoundland on a routine training mission. Before the night is over, it would slip beneath the waves to a watery grave.
The sub went down with 42 hands on board.
But the P-514 never encountered an enemy ship. Its destiny was sealed by a Canadian minesweeper.
It was a real tragic tale. In the middle of the night, the submarine was rammed by the Georgian.
See you later. See you later.
Marine scientist Glenn Gilbert has launched an expedition to find the wreck of the 514.
It's a small target. There's a big ocean out here.
Using state-of-the-art side-scan sonar and remote-controlled cameras, his team hopes to answer the nagging question of what went wrong on that fateful night.
It was wartime, and the Georgian made a quick decision that this was an enemy sub. They did hail it, and there was no response. Within a very short time, they made the decision to ram it.
But the Grand Banks is not about to give up its secrets easily. For days, Glenn and his team fight heavy seas and blinding fog to scour a grid almost 3 square kilometers.
Well, there's a big loading boom on there, the old style, right?
They locate only one wreck. Just when it seems all hope is lost,
We're on it! We're on it!
another ghostly image emerges on the sonar.
We're not seeing any large opening.
As the sonar fish moves closer to its target, the image starts to take on a more distinctive shape. But is it a ship or a sub?
It's a very sharp, square edge to the bow.
Glenn is convinced they've found the 514.
We think now that we can conclude that the sub is lying on its starboard side, its port side up. It looks like this would be the conning tower here.
The sonar image is not conclusive evidence. A remote-operated camera will have to be sent to the bottom to send back pictures.
She's heading down to the bottom now.
In order for the ROV to find its target, the ship has to be firmly anchored. But the ocean bottom is not only rock hard, it's barren. There's nothing to hold the anchors.
If we're drifting too fast, we run the risk of running the ROV into the submarine. We know there's armaments down there, guns and wires and cables, so we could get the ROV fouled up in the sub and lose it.
All day long, the crew battles rough seas and heavy winds. The anchors of the Gesmer refuse to take hold.
It's 4 o'clock. Pretty much tried everything that we can do to anchor here. It's not working out for us, so we got one stern anchor out and we're sort of live boating, which is risky.
Live boating, a last-ditch effort to drift across the wreck and release the ROV at precisely the right time.
What's your heading now?
275.
Yeah, I got to bring her back.
The equivalent of finding a needle in a haystack.
We're going to haul you back in, Blaine.
After every attempt, the ROV has to be reeled back in and the Gesmer repositioned using GPS. The strain is beginning to show.
We've been at this all day since 5:30 this morning. It's 4:30 now. It's getting a little tiring. Give us an update.
There is time for just one more drop as the light begins to fade. This time,
Could be right there, right?
Yeah.
the ROV finds its mark.
I don't believe we got it. Look at that.
What emerges from below shocks even the crew above.
Can you raise up a bit just to get a bigger view, perspective on it?
A submarine lying on her starboard side, almost fully intact. The conning tower still visible after 65 years. The forward gun still poised, as if ready to fire.
The hull seems to be quite intact, even on the port side. We're looking for that damage from the actual ramming, which we know is on the port side. There's a piece of wreckage there, falling off.
After careful examination of the submarine's original blueprints, Glenn concludes this is the final resting place of the 514.
It's just amazing. I mean, you have no sense of what it's really going to look like. From the sonar image, you get a pretty good idea. We knew it was lying starboard down, but we had no idea that we were going to get the detail that you see in real life.
Only one body was ever recovered from the accident, that of engineer Norman C. Bennett, found floating near the shore of Ferryland, Newfoundland.
41 souls are still on board, that's what we think.
A formal inquiry into the sinking of the 514 concluded that the captain of the Georgian had acted correctly that night. The frigate had hailed the sub but received no response. The captain assumed she was a German U-boat and rammed her on the port side. A second expedition to dive on the wreck could help explain what went wrong. But for now, Glenn and his crew are dealing with mixed emotions over the find.
It definitely is a grave site, and we all respect that. So it's a mixture of elation at finding it and yet respect for the tragedy that did occur that night in 1942.